My name is John Fetterman.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the wokes eating the liberals, okay? Because that typically is what happens in the Democrat Party. The far left progressives will go after liberals that are not woke enough, right? And that is what is happening here, as this NBC reporter is being accused of ableism for the way that she characterized her interview with John Fetterman, who is running against Dr. Oz for the Senate seat in Pennsylvania, as Pat Toomey is stepping down. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with John Fetterman, which some of you guys are, I have not talked about him at all on my channel because, quite honest, I mean, this race is very uninteresting to me. I think it is clear who people should vote for, regardless of your politics. We're gonna get in that in later in the video. But John Fetterman used to be the lieutenant governor of the state, and he suffered a stroke, and he is clearly still suffering from the effects of that stroke. But regardless of that, Democrats are still pushing this man to, be in the Senate, despite the fact that it seems to me that he's still struggling. Again, this video is not to make fun of him, okay? It's not funny. It's a serious situation, but we have to have a real talk conversation about this. And the last reaction to this reporter and her characterization and transparency that she used during this interview with John Fetterman really shows us why we can't have real conversations about this type of stuff, because everything to them is some type of hate, and that's just simply not the case. Stating facts is not hate speech, right? We got to make that clear in 2022, because social media, these social media platforms, big tech, the Democrat Party, liberal media, they think that facts or stating facts is a form of hate speech. Like, for example, if you say that, there are only two sexes, that is hate speech, right? I mean, again, it blows my mind, the world that we're living in here. And I think that the reaction from some of these woke liberals, right, or woke progressives on Twitter really shows you that we're going downhill, and we can't have real conversations about this stuff if this is what people are going to do anytime we state facts that are uncomfortable, right? So with that being said, I want to go ahead and roll this clip of the interview that this NBC reporter, this Dana Burns, did with John Fetterman, so that you guys can get a better understanding of the context here. Take a look.
Another pivotal Senate race in Pennsylvania, now considered a toss-up. Our Dasha Burns spoke with Democrat John Fetterman in his first in-person sit-down interview since he suffered a stroke. And Dasha, this was not a typical candidate interview.
No, Lester, because of his stroke, Fetterman's campaign required closed captioning technology for this interview to essentially read our questions as we ask them. And Lester, in small talk before the interview, without captioning, it wasn't clear he was understanding our conversation. Can voters trust that you will be able to do this job on day one?
Yeah, of course.
This is Pennsylvania Democratic Senate candidate John Fetterman's first in-person sit-down interview since a stroke sidelined him from the campaign trail for months.
That auditory processing where I'll hear someone speaking, but sometimes I'll be able to be precise on what exactly that they're saying. I use captioning.
His campaign required that he be allowed to use a transcription program on his computer during our interview.
I always thought I was pretty empathetic, emphatic. I think I was very, empathetic. That's an example of the stroke, empathetic. Yeah. I always thought I was very empathetic before having a stroke. But now after having that stroke, I really understand, much more kind of the challenges that Americans have day in and day out.
So you say you're on the road to full recovery, but right now, voters really have to take your word for it. We've asked for your medical records. We've asked to have a conversation with someone from your medical team, to interview your physician. You've declined those requests. Why?
Well, I feel like we have been very transparent in a lot of different ways. When our doctor has already given a letter saying that I'm able to serve and to be running.
I mean, respectfully, that letter from your physician, that was 6 months ago. Don't voters deserve to know your status now?
being in front of thousands and thousands of people and having interviews and getting around all across Pennsylvania, that gives everybody and the voters decide, if they think that it's really the issue.
Polls show Fetterman's lead is shrinking against Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz. It's now a toss-up race that could determine control of the Senate. Republicans focusing on crime. In particular, Fetterman's votes on the parole board.
Fetterman says he's trying to get as many criminals out of prison as he can,
including votes in favor of paroling convicted murderers. Are you soft on crime?
Of course not. I'm actually effective on crime, and I believe in second chances, and I've run on that record.
Meanwhile, Fetterman going after Dr. Oz on abortion rights.
Dr. Oz likes to make fun of me that I might miss a word, but he's missed 2 words, and that is a yes or no on the national abortion ban. If you're going to be our next senator, you have to give the answer.
Lester Fetterman told us he is committed to debating Dr. Oz on October 25th, where he will also be using closed captioning.
Yeah, so the woke revolutionaries had an issue with the way Miss Dasha Burns kind of characterized that conversation. The part where she made it clear that, hey, without the closed captioning, it was pretty hard to talk to the guy. He did not seem to understand exactly what we were talking about. It was just hard to talk. Now, Kara Swisher, who apparently has talked to John Fetterman before, without any of his aides, says that this is nonsense. Maybe this report is just bad at small talk, implying that John Fetterman can hold a conversation without his accommodations. Now, Dasha Burns says it's possible for 2 different reporters to have 2 different experiences with a candidate. Our team was in the room with him and reported what happened in it, as journalists do, before and after closed captioning was on. Okay, so this sparked some accusations from Twitter here about her being ableist. Okay, and this is what is happening here, right? So she has to continue on trying to basically justify her transparency, because that is what she was doing. She was being transparent. She says, "We were happy to accommodate closed captioning. Our reporting did not and should not comment on fitness for office. This is for voters to decide. What we do push for as reporters is transparency. It's our job. Fetterman sat down and answered our questions. That's his job." So again, of course, people did not think that was good enough, and they're accusing her of ableism. A lot of the blue check liberals here. So let's read here. As Kendall Brown says, "You treated reasonable basic accommodations like they were an exotic oddity and not just the baseline of how we as a society should treat each other. Every single disability advocate, including me, is telling you how you handle it wrong, but you're doubling down instead." Cliff Slepter says, "This, folks, as I say so often, is just about the biggest reason we're on the cusp of autocracy. Fetterman's clearly recovered and shown his values. He's up versus a gouge, gross oil slick salesman, a non-diet pill pushing pal of a Turkish fascist who denies the 2020 election, and etc., etc. Yes, keep digging deeper. Whatever you do, don't omit a mistake directly from the MAGA playbook." Quote, "Unlike any political interview I've ever done, you were biased. You did try to spin this into higher ratings at the expense of democracy, and you are helping create a theocratic state where your own children will be forced to give birth because you only care about money. Transparency and ableism are not the same things. I highly recommend you meet with the disability community." Emily Tibble says, "Stop acting like you, a public media figure, have no responsibility to understand the ramifications of framing a disabled political candidate as, quote, unfit. You're not reporting what happened. You're being disingenuous and unethical, and apologize. Real ish is at. Just admit that your attempt at your job was lazy and ableist in both its execution and its framing." All right, so here's the thing. Here's what I want to say about this. This is why Democrats, when they come out here and they talk about Herschel Walker, well, why are the Republicans, why are they not condemning Herschel Walker? Why are they still standing behind Herschel Walker? Well, the same reason that you guys are still standing behind John Fetterman. Again, this is not trying to make fun of John Fetterman, but I don't understand how in the world can you go to the polls and confidently vote for a man who thinks that he's running against Pat Toomey, somebody that he's not running against.
It's such the most important race for the Senate here for 22. We have to replace Pat Toomey. Senator Toomey was not very nice to me. Pat Toomey is a miracle.
Now, I understand there's multiple ways that you can interpret what John Fetterman was saying there. One way you could interpret it is that, well, he was talking about just replacing Pat Toomey's, seat, whoever is going to, be in his current seat. But based off what this guy has said in the past and the gaffes that he's made, I have reason to believe that he really does think, or in that moment he was thinking, that he's running against Pat Toomey. Just like Joe Biden thought that the deceased Republican Congresswoman was still alive. And we already been down this route before, guys, with Joe Biden. We've been down this route, and look how it's worked out for this country. Joe Biden, clearly, in my opinion, is experiencing some issues upstairs. And that has devastated this country. He is not running the White House. We don't know who's running that White House because I'm not convinced that it's Kamala either. There are some handlers behind closed doors that are telling Joe Biden how to do even the most basic things, such as, to get up and to sit down, when to get up and to sit down, when to shake people's hands, when to enter a room, probably when to take a dump, when to take a shower. He has people that are controlling everything that he does. And anytime he goes off script, it is clear that, again, the guy is experiencing problems. That has resulted in problems for us, particularly on the world stage. It is the reason why I believe that groups like the Taliban and Putin, people that are our foreign adversaries, have become so emboldened after Trump left office, because they know that, okay, this guy, he's not all there. Okay, the elevator doesn't go all the way to the top floor. We can get away with some stuff. He has no clue what's going on. John Fetterman, who suffered a stroke, apparently, according to this reporter, can't even have a basic conversation, which, in my opinion, is a fundamental aspect of being a politician. If you can't read, write, understand conversation, okay, do basic things, I'm not necessarily sure if you should be in office. Again, this is not an attack on disabled people. It is not hate to point out that people who have mental deficiencies probably should not be in office, okay? Particularly if their mental deficiency impedes their ability to comprehend and understand information. I have no problem with disabled people running for office. Again, look at Greg Abbott. He's disabled. But his disability has nothing to do with his ability to be governor. Anybody that has a disability that doesn't have anything to do with their functional role of being a politician, hey, I have no issues with it. But we're not going to send somebody who doesn't have any legs or that is paralyzed to go fight on the front lines for us, right? So again, we shouldn't be sending people to office who are still experiencing issues that could get in the way of their ability to be a politician. We're talking about making decisions on legislation, complex legislation, that has an effect on people's lives. But Democrats want you to hold your nose up and to vote for it. And if you don't, then you're an ableist, right? Again, this guy's issues were so apparent that even a mainstream liberal media reporter had to point it out. She was like, I would feel bad if I didn't tell the world that, look, this guy can't even comprehend a basic conversation. Again, this is not picking on him. This is not making fun of him. I feel bad for the guy. But we cannot let people getting their feelings hurt get in the way of putting people in office who at least have a basic ability to comprehend speech, which again is important when you're a politician. But again, if you point that out, if you point out facts, if you just, hey, this was my experience, I think that the guy has some issues, you're ableist. You hate them. You hate disabled people. You don't think disabled people should be in office. And all that really does is shut down important conversations, because if we had this conversation before the 2020 election, like we should have, about Joe Biden, when he was showing signs that, hey, you know, he might not necessarily be cut out for office, this is how we end up in the situation we're in right now. If we would have had those conversations, I don't think we would end up in this situation. But now that he's in office and it's clear that, you know, the guy's clearly too old, there's some problems. Now people are having buyer's remorse. You want the same thing to happen with John Fetterman? Again, that's not to say that the guy can't run for office one day, but if you actually cared about him, you would tell him, hey, look, John, you might want to sit this one out, right? You know, let's wait till you're fully recovered. Let's wait till, you know, you can comprehend, you know, a conversation, you can understand people. Let's wait until you're 100% recovered before you run for political office again. I think that's the right thing. And I would say that same thing even if it was a Republican. If there's a Republican who clearly is experiencing mental deficiencies that, in my opinion, disqualify him from serving in office, again, a position in which you need to be mentally sharp, you need to be all there in order to serve and understand what's going on, I would say I don't think he should run. I don't think he should run. But again, these Democrats, these are the same people who criticize Republicans for standing behind Herschel Walker, right, and the allegations against him, which again, if he did those things, obviously, I mean, hey, it's hypocritical. And if you choose to vote for him, then you're probably voting for him not because you like him, but probably because you want Republicans to win the Senate. Why are Democrats voting for this guy? The exact same reason. They want Democrats to win the Senate. They don't care that he may not necessarily be mentally capable of serving. They don't care about that. They just care about Republicans not having a majority. Same thing with Herschel Walker. Republicans might look at Herschel Walker and say, or conservatives on the ground might say, hey, you know, I don't like the fact that, you know, he did what they're alleging that he did, but I don't want Democrats in power. That's the state of politics. So I don't want to hear nothing about Republican support, conservative support for Herschel Walker when you're out here supporting this guy, right? This guy who, again, to me, even this reporter pointed out, he got some issues. Again, I'm not trying to make fun of him. It's a sad situation, but we cannot let people's feelings and wokeness and fragility get in the way of putting people in office who are mentally capable, who have the mental capacity to serve. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Facts are not hate speech. Simply stating that, you know, hey, I think there might be some issues here based off a conversation that we had. Guy had a stroke. Being transparent, that does not mean that you hate disabled people. Does not make you ableist. And this type of smearing of people for simply stating facts, okay, or their observations or trying to be transparent from the liberal left really is, I think, the most toxic part about this whole censorship that we're having in society, because again, that's where it comes from. Where everything we don't like is hate speech. And that's how the censorship starts. Because again, people's feelings are more important than having people in office that, again, are mentally capable of serving, according to the left, right? Again, it's amazing stuff. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.